Okie dokie. Excuse me for being a bit late, but being 4th of July, some things got in the way. I thought I was going to be Johnny on time, and things got pushed back, and supper got pushed back, and this and that got pushed back, and I just forgot. Sorry, one of them days. If nobody shows up, cool, I understand. If somebody does show up, we'll talk. Well, hey, see Walter, how you doing? Hello to Sweden. Awesome. Y'all have some of the best. Sweden has some of the best bushcraft channels there is. They really do. They believe in that hand scale, knife scale. Very, very good. Richard, good evening. Todd, good evening. Okay. Balterall 1776. I'm just going to say 1776. Hello. David Rosenberg. Hello to Los Angeles. Johnny 3806. Good evening. Yeah, it just life got pushed back, and by the time I got, I'm making supper right quick, and the wife's doing stuff. She's off today, so she's, honey, can you open this? And I need the salt and I need the pepper, and then and the kitty. Look at the kitty. Okay, and we're doing all of that stuff, and then finally she said, "Wasn't you supposed to do your live like 5 minutes ago?" Like, so I went running out here. So sorry, I'm a little bit late. Mark, hello to Central Alberta. See Walter, hello. Happy Independence Day. Correct. All right, Battle Rattle, like it. Old Miner, good evening. Tim Funk, happy 4th. Central PA. Hiram, good evening. Yeah, I posted a thing on to Facebook today because they were showing it's the prediction for tomorrow, and it was supposed to be like 112, 111, etc. here with heat index. So, yep, it's July, and that's kind of like what we expect this time of the year. Gray Wolf, good evening. Yep, you made a live. It moisture coming off the Gulf. We hadn't had rain up until about a week ago, and we started getting intermittent rain every day or so. In the afternoon, which is great. It's keeping our overall temperature down a little bit, but at the same time, the humidity went, and so you're just cooking when you step outside. It's like you're walking into a sauna. You can just feel the heat. There is no such thing as cool air until you get in the house. Diane, good evening. Herbert, good evening. Steele, good evening. Mr. Johnny, thank you very much. Hope you're doing well doing well also. Stephen Davis, hello, Worm Wrangler. How you doing? Oh, Dave, you going to Yellowstone? Awesome, beautiful place out there. Dakota, happy Independence Day, brother. How you doing? Ronald Green, good evening. Gray Wolf, I'm always happy to help out if I can. Terry, where's all the number 10 percussion caps? Someone a few days ago told me that Cabela's has got some in of 10s and 11s. And like I said, my usual haunts that I check around is I'll look at Cabela's, I'll look at Mid-South, Shooter Supply, I'll go to Dixie Gun Works, I'll also go to Midway USA. Somewhere in there is where I score mine. And I picked up 2,000 last year, and I'm still doing pretty good. So, But yeah, if I was looking right now, I would start hammering them because they're not going to be putting them out starting next month for hunting season. And that's when you see the 10s and 11s show up in the big box stores like Walmart. So keep your eyes open. Ronald Green, good evening. Herbert, yeah, you need rain, but you ain't got to mow the yard either. That's a big advantage. Donald, good evening. Lewis, thank you very much. Oh, cool. We got some large rifle primers, Gray Wolf. They can get really hard to come by. Um, it really is, because with demand being so high, um, the growth of gun owners in the last 8 years has been astronomical across the board. And the largest group buying guns are women and minorities. And so, because they weren't gun people before, and like big cities, they're buying them now, And so it's put a huge demand. And so, why should the manufacturers sell us primers when they could use those primers just to make fresh ammunition and sell to this market? So, I predict it's going to be a couple of years till they kind of balance out, where cost, demand, people get what they need, and then you'll see reloading gear get a little easier to come by. Jeff, good evening. Yeah, battle rattle, I hear you. I had neighbors in the past. Excuse me. Woo, got strangled. That didn't understand my preparedness and stuff like that. And then we had a hurricane, and all the power went down. They lived right next door. The place I was staying in an apartment was a big house that had been divided into two apartments. So I'm in the right hand side, and this family was in the left hand side. And we had a hurricane go through, and all the power went out. And we wouldn't get power for 4 days. And I was set up in my backyard with cooking supplies and everything. I moved everything into my coolers. I was set. I was just camping in my backyard. I even had a fan. And they were miserable. And they kept, we had not been on the best of terms, we shall say. But they took a different view by that third day. And finally, the wife had come over and talked to me, and she said, "Can you help us heat up something to eat?" I said, "Sure, bring it over. We'll use my pot, my stove right quick," because I had Coleman stove, everything. We heated up dinner for her and the husband and the kids. And I said, you don't have to go as far as I have, but it pays to have a basic kit. And they agreed to talk about getting some basic stuff. And before I moved out of there a year and a half later, they had some basic survival gear, basic stuff, had a tent in case the house gets trashed, the roof gets tore off, you got a tent. We can stay in here and guard your stuff. They had food, water, stuff like that, at least a month's worth prepared, and where it'd be totable and portable, where they could load it up in the back of his truck. He ran a construction company, so he had a big truck and trailer. They could load that up and go wherever they needed to go. And so those little things made their life so much better. Oh yeah, Mead. Yeah, you're doing good. I had a friend of mine I went over and visited last Saturday. He was running his smoker in his backyard, saying anytime I want to come over and smoke some, bring a Boston Bud or whatever and smoke it. He's got a big, like nearly $1,000 smoker barbecue set, and I might do that. I might do a video on that. I used to cook barbecue with the college when I was in college, Phi Theta Kappa, and we would put on a barbecue plate thing, and me and this gentleman who's now passed away would cook barbecue, and we'd get like 150 Boston butts. And the city where I lived had a big barbecue thing you could rent out, where you put hardwood, and they had these big huge grates where it's like 8 foot by 22 foot, so you could feed some people on that one. And we'd get up to 150 Boston butts on it, on seasoned oak with um, applewood chips, and using apple cider vinegar on it, and salt rubs and dry rubs. And we'd cook that many in a 12-14 hour period, and then we'd put them up overnight, and we'd chop them up and just fill up brand new clean ice chest to the top, solid packed with barbecue. And then we'd put those in the walk-in cooler overnight, and then the next day we'd add the sauce to it, make up the plates and the sandwiches and stuff. So it was a big job, but it worked well. We made some good barbecue that way. I haven't done any of that stuff in years. I need to get back to it. Johnny, yeah, the power here in north central Texas keeps fluctuating in and out. That demand out there in that heat. And we don't need electric cars. The power grid can't handle it now. But hey. Oh yeah. Bill Van. Honey makes really good mead. Corn cob jelly, which is high fructose corn syrup, makes pretty good mead too if you know how to do it. I never was a drinker of beer or mead or things like that. I liked shine. I liked scotch. I liked hard liquors that had a bite to it. Um, and I just never was a beer or anything like that person. And so friends of mine, they were into mead and stuff. It was nice. It just wasn't my thing. It can be real good. I remember mead being made out of scuppulins, which is a type of grape down here, and that was a very sweet and savory taste to it. And they would take a cup and they would wet the rim, put a little bit of brown sugar on it, and then sprinkle just a little bit of cayenne pepper on the damp brown sugar, and then they would put that mead in there that was made out of scuppulins, and it really worked. That stuff was dangerous. It was such a good taste. Oh, cool, Killer Kitten, you're in Gino Beach in France. Awesome. I had said for years, one day I wanted to go to over and see it. I had family that was over on that day, and that I got to meet as a boy, and they told me stories about being over there on D-Day and etc. Had one family member that had said that his D-Day experience was he fell off the boat 4 times. When they were loading to the landing craft, he somehow, swell whatever, knocked him off and he went overboard. They had to fish him back out, so he didn't get to go with his guys. And so they put him into the next boat that's going out. He got in that boat, and since they were already packed, they told him to get over here on this side. So he did, and then the swells got to get going a little bit and everything, and he got kind of squished a little bit, so he climbed up on the top, hoping he could see his boat, and then a wave hit, and off the side he went. So the next boat fished him out, and he said, I got in the water 4 times before I ever went. They didn't drop the gangplank. They just went to shooting, and I fell off the side and swam up. And so I found my guys about an hour after we got on the beach. But he said it was 4 times he got dumped before he ever got on that beach. And he said, Lord, if you'll just get me on shore, I will never go out in the ocean again. I promise. Dead Prepper, hello, doing well. Thank you. K-Town C, yeah, veterans should be provided land. I agree. I don't think they should ever have. If you're a 20-year veteran, especially a combat veteran, I don't think you should ever have to pay taxes again in your life. You paid. But I'm very pro for the soldiers and all. Killer Kitten, nice. Take lots of pictures. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Dark Meta, hello. How you doing? But home brewing, which everybody always gets hung up on white lightning and stuff, but really beer making, wine making, mead making, that was very, very common for so many years. And it was a great way to take stuff that the fruit's going a little past time. Well, we can turn it into wine. All them blackberries that we picked, they've been in the freezer too long, and we're going to have to do something with them, turn them into wine. There was always some way to roll it over into something else. I remember a lot of family members doing that, even though we were in a dry county, but I do remember quite a few of that being made from various families. Hike with Mike. Hello there. Oh, yeah. K-Town, the old mini bikes. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. Correct, Gray Wolf. Wine, mead, cider, shine is just another way of taking what you got and turning it into a resource that you can either sell, trade, or utilize, and it's going to be around. I remember hearing stories about uh, wine that had got old and they let it turn to vinegar so they could use the vinegar. You know, um, I don't know the exact process of that, but I remember somebody talking about back in the Depression that they had put up a bunch of wine, and for whatever reason, the wine had gone bad. So they went on another process and just turned it into vinegar because they could use vinegar. You know, you take milk, about like a gallon of whole milk, put it on the stove, and you put your candy thermometer up there, and you bring it up, and when it hits right at like, I think it's like 195, 198, something like that. And they'd put 2 big tablespoons of vinegar in it and stir it up and turn it into cheese. It would collaborate and go together, and then they'd squeeze out all the stuff with cheesecloth, and they'd make cheese because it had tons of milk. Milk's about to get old, turned into cheese. Battle Rally. Yeah, I was rewatching your episode with Grouch the other day, and that man is a real treasure, and his knowledge and stories, if at all possible, would be awesome to see more of him. That is the plan. There will be more of it coming up. In fact, I'm planning not this coming week, but the next week I'm going to go over and spend some time with him. And I'm going to take Cameron. We're going to do another discussion and just see what comes up. Mike, I'm glad you like the percussion revolver series. Shane, hello. Cool. K-Town, thank you. Stephen Davis, I've heard of vinegar pie, and if I've eaten it, I don't remember. But being a kid coming up dirt poor, we ate a lot of stuff that I like to forget. But I do remember family members talking about vinegar pie. So my mother made lemon pies, and I was one of the few people who could eat it. I mean, it was lemon, boy. I mean, wow. But I actually got to liking it, and so my mother liked lemon pie. Me and her would eat lemon pie, and then my aunt would eat lemons like you eat oranges. Didn't bother her at all. She'd just peel it and start eating it. So. Gray Wolf, what is the smallest caliber black powder cartridge anyone has experience with? Working with using black in a 7x57, just see. It can and will fire. And I'm betting the velocity should be somewhere around 11 or 1200 feet per second, which if you use lead projectile and you use soft lead, because the velocity is going to be down, would be fairly effective. That people don't talk about casting a two-tone bullet anymore. But what it was, we would have one pot with dead soft lead, 100% pure lead, and one part of like number 2 hardened alloy lead. And so if the bullet poured, the mold poured where it was nose down, you're pouring to the base, you would take the dead soft lead and use a little dipper, let's say like a 9mm case on a piece of wire, and you dip it up and you pour it in the mold, and that would put the nose, and then you'd fill it up the rest of the way with a hard lead. The two leads would bond together but not blend. See? So you'd pour that in there and you'd give it a count of 5 to kind of solidify, and then you'd put the other, and the two leads would bond. Well, it made a lead bullet that had a really soft tip on it and would mushroom out real easy. But it left you the driving bands hard on the back so that those would grip the rifling. And I saw that a lot in those 8mm Mausers that had kind of crappy bores. And they'd do it because it would spread out. It was soft enough, it'd spread out. And so I figured somewhere around 1,000 feet per second, what you're going to get out of it was a full load of black, especially if you go something like 3 or 4F. Grouch is one of those gentlemen that once he's gone, we will all have lost something that can't be replaced. I agree. I truly agree. Oh, Shane, that's cool. I didn't know anybody made vinegar pie anymore. Not as bad as you'd think. Shoot wet bore, like I talk about doing. Run the lube up and down the bore before you ever fire the first round, and so it's soft. So that fouling goes into softness. See, and it will stay soft, and you'll get several shots. If you shoot it into a dry bore, it's going to hard. By your third shot, it's like a block in there. So just grease that bore ahead of time. To do it as a quick, simple test, use a little bit of Crisco on a patch and just grease it a little bit. Not pack it, but just wet it good with Crisco and try it. And that should, and then clean it be easy. Just pour hot water down the barrel and it'll melt it right out. K-Town, Blackie, did you ever ride ATVs or dirt bikes in your adult years? Any good memories? I was a teenager and I had a Kawasaki dirt bike, and I also had a Yamaha dirt bike and things like that. And whenever I was, like 13, 14 years old, I had a front tire on a Kawasaki 1100 blow up at 105 miles an hour, and I did a bunch of flips. And I made a deal with God, you get me off of this thing and I'll never get back on it. So I can't. I've only been on an ATV last October, and that was because of James Bender wanted me to take his ATV when we were doing the Silver Wolves and take stuff up the hill. And I looked at him. I said, I haven't been on a bike since I was a little bitty teenager. And I made a deal with God. You get me off this thing alive, I'll never get back on one. He said, well, it's not a motorcycle. It's got 4 wheels, and a preacher told you to do it. So you got plausible deniability. Come on. So I rode it up the hill. That's the first one I've been on since I was a kid. Gray Wolf, yeah, use wheel weights and dead soft lead for heavy 45 coat loads. Those work well like that. Yeah, I heard about Joe Robinette. Yeah. Yeah, he published a video not long ago talking, letting people know that he screwed up. He smacked hard. Oh, Donald, cool. Your wife makes vinegar pie. Cool. Yeah. In Siberia, they use pickle juice in biscuits. Don't tell my wife. She loves pickles. Dead Prepper, vinegar pie is kind of like, he pointed out, kind of like lemon pie. It's a pie with stuffing, little on the sour side. And some people like that. Reinhardt, hello. Okay, Tazewell, Tennessee is famous for it. Cool. Christopher Evans, good evening. Yeah, Gray Wolf, he looked like he got bummed up pretty bad. And you don't just get up and walk away from those kind of impacts. You got to have time for everything to heal up and get back in position. I know I've ricocheted off trees before when I was young. Kodak, well, good evening. Ken Albert, good evening. K-Town, my uncle always said, buy your enemy a motorcycle. Yep, I can believe that. Mr. Cheddar, yeah. Oh, pickle juice or lemon juice often used in sourdough to activate baking soda. Okay. I'm sure there are many, but what is one of your more memorable excursions that was just a comical disaster? Oh boy. The one that pops to mind is when me and Davy Hobbs and Arthur Bradley went up into Kentucky into them mountains to a hike, camp out, that type of deal. And Arthur apparently had been up there. He was in the Army and he'd been up there before. And we drove, got up there, and we hiked probably 10, 15 miles in the mountains. And the sun's going down like a rock and couldn't find any flat place. And I'm using one of them old U.S. Army type jungle hammocks that's flat on the bottom. You got to be just so or flip you. And the only place we found right after dark was this little bitty, like 12 foot by 8 foot patch of semi-flat. So David and Arthur slung their tent up. They got in the tent together there. I went and took my hammock and tied it to this tree. And then there was a tree, there's a cliff right there, and there's a tree sticking up. And I managed to get a rope around and hook to that tree. And so I got into that hammock. And everybody dead tired. We were asleep in 20 minutes. And then I woke up and something kind of moved funny. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And that hammock had dumped me once or twice because you had to put a stick across the ends to make it hold out flat. And so I began to worry that, maybe that thing is, going to give. And you're zipped up inside the mosquito net, which was not a very convenient, fast way to get in and out of that thing. And then something else kind of moved. And I realized that the tree over the cliff was starting to give way and was going to fall. Me tying to it and putting my weight on it had dislodged the tree. And so as I tried to grab the zipper, that tree went. The snatch broke the pole at my feet and the line came off. That's what kept me from going over the cliff. But now I'm hanging like this over the cliff, twisted up inside of this hammock and bug net, where from like the bottom of my ribs up is laying up on top, and my feet are hanging on about a 90-foot drop. And I'm hollering best I can to try to get Dave and Arthur to get up, because you're hearing the tree crashing on down, and neither one of them would wake up. I had to yell and scream and holler, and it felt like eternity till finally they came out and figured out I really was in trouble and drug me back on top. But I had hollered for a good 5 minutes. Neither one of them woke up. They could care less, That would have been a good comedy video to watch. It's something right out of an Adam Sandler movie or something. Kitten Killer, good night. Justin Coon, hey, brother. Yeah, Jeff Conley would have been real good for Laurel and Hardy. Most of the houses in Ontario are on property over 1 million easily in less than an acre of property. Obviously, you got to have money to be in Canada. Tiny Titan, good evening. Oh, you've been to Hawaii. I'm glad you had fun. Grandpa Buckshot. Yeah, that happened to me at a rendezvous in Unicoi in North Georgia, where the Chattahoochee River comes through the park. It's just a big stream up there, and it was in early March, and this was like day 5 of a 12-day camp out, and so I decided to take a bath, and so I walked down the stream probably about 300 yards, figuring I was far away enough from camp, stripped off and got out, and I'm about sitting in about this deep of water, and I'm like 21 years old maybe, and these 3 young ladies walked up. I think the youngest was like 24 and the oldest was probably 32, and they walked up and said, mind if we come in? I said, come on. They stripped off, came in, we had a bath, and then I got up, said, y'all have fun, ladies, and I walked back to camp. Thank God that water was cold, is all I'm going to say. Oh, Justin, tell Pink hello for me. Blackie, what kind of butterfly would you have been if you'd gone full term in that hammock cocoon? A very angry one. You know, you leave me in that cocoon all night, you better hope I go over. Because if not, when you get up in the morning, yeah. Well, guys, down here in my south, I know of a couple of places where it's like 3 to 5 acres and a really old farmhouse, and they want 35,000 for it because you're out in the woods, you're out in the country, you're away from the town, and it's not farmland. It's this is the house and the barn and all the farmland that's now attached over. This is the old farmstead, and I have seen several of those in the last couple of years, 35, 40,000 for a house that's livable and can be upgraded pretty easily. And 2, 3 acres. A friend of mine, he bought his house down here near Geneva, and it's on a 5 acre plot. With the house was built in about 1928, but people have upgraded it over the years. So it's got central heat and air, it's got everything, and had a basement, 5 bedrooms, a den, big kitchen, a big front porch, a carport, a big back porch, and about 2 dozen pecan trees on it. And he wanted 45,000 is what he had to pay for it. So, yeah, there's an advantage to being down here in the deep south. It's cheaper down here and a lot of things. Chris Evans, I've heard you mentioning, and thank you very much for the money. I heard you mention packing a shot load in a single cylinder of a cap and ball revolver. Do you use regular old bird shot for that? Yes, that's what I use for it. And I believe I did a video in my cap and ball series about how I do it. I would take and shift to 4F if I had it. You can use 3 if you don't have it, but 4F is good because you got such a smaller powder charge. It's going to be about like 15 grains, something like that, of powder. And then I put 2 thin cardboard wads. What I do is I take Coke or boxes and punch out. I went to Harbor Freight and just got me a punch set that punches out a flat disc. And I forget the name of it, but a whole set of them was like $12. And I found the one that was the closest to the 44 caliber or the 36, and I just put it on top of something soft. I use one of them $1 frisbees you get in the dog food aisle, to play frisbee with a dog. Those are dirt cheap, and that way I can put it onto something, put the piece of cardboard up there and then take that punch and hit it and cut it and not damage the cutter by putting it on a hard surface so when it punches through, it's not dulling it. Okay, because that plastic won't dull it. And then I make a stack of those. So I put like 15 grains in, put 2 of those wads, ram them down, put the shot in, which is just like number 8 shot. Take a single shell, cut it, and pour it in a thing. You got enough for several loads. And fill it almost to the top. Then put a wad on top, press it, put a second wad on top, press it, and cap it. And that's the shot load. And I've stopped a lot of snakes with that were rather upset with me. I want to leave them alone. I want them to go on and have a wonderful life. I will go around them at every opportunity. But it's one of them things whenever one goes to singing and they are right there. I mean, you're within the 5-foot strike range and they're already coiled up and they're pissed. If you move, they're probably going to strike. That's whenever I just pull it out and let them have it. And they'll go limp when you hit them. You know, and then I'll thumb it and take a big step out and take an aim shot to make sure. But I only had to shoot. That was a great big diamondback. She was about right at 6 feet long, about that big around. I mean, she was bigger than my forearm in thickness. And I had to shoot her twice. But other than that, it works just fine up close. 0 to 10, 12 feet. You know, this ain't a long range. You're not going to turn it into a 410 shotgun. This is for anti-snake type deal. And it's going to be right here at you. Shane Lawson, yeah. Prices in Tennessee have skyrocketed. A lot of people have moved here and drove the prices up. Can't buy nothing under $300,000 on a lot. Anything with acreage would cost $500,000. I can believe it. I saw a thing last night where the insurance company, I think it was State Farm, was telling California, if you don't let us raise rates by 50%, we're pulling out of the state. Because of the wildfires burning places every year and so much vandalism and everything else, they don't want to be in the state anymore. And so you're seeing a lot of people pulling out of those places and for other reasons are moving to other parts of the country. And they're leaving a place where a shack is $500,000. So they get over here and they see a house and all like that. They're willing to pay $500,000 for it. So it's driving up prices everywhere. Not so much down here where I'm at because we're just, you know, $200,000-$300,000 gets you like a 10-acre lot and a brand new house that's been built within a year. So. Eldon, good evening. Yeah, because that, especially whenever you're, you know, Grouch's land. There's 800 acres is his cabin, and it's 800 acres is his brother, and 800 acres is his son, and then 800 acres is his other brother, and then they got 1,500 acres on the other end of that. That's the hunting land. So, yeah, and there's a little bit of land out there. And I can remember in the early 90s where the land on the other side of the creek from Grouch, because you got a creek running the full length of, they own almost 8 miles of a creek. And the land on the other side was coming up for sale, and they wanted $500 an acre down there by the creek because there was no timber on it and you couldn't farm it. So it was $500 an acre. And me and the wife thought really hard about that, about building us a cabin on the other side of the creek from Grouch's cabin. Just get us like 10 acres and set up over there. And we didn't do it. Wasn't in a financial situation to do it back then. But things are, I think, going to turn around in the long run. I hope anyway. Yeah, Jeff Conley, State Farm said they're raising our rates. The thing that I saw was for renters, it was going up 50%. For a homeowner, it was going up 35%. and for a apartment, condo, something like that, it was going up like 40%. You know, because they really want to pull out of the states what they really want to do. So, Bill Van, yeah. Yeah. Um, in Pensacola, in the hood, literally right across from the crack house, 2 bedroom, 1 bath house, block house went for 125,000. Yeah. But you're in Pensacola, you know. Pensacola is that anchor, you know. You're about to leave Florida, you're in Pensacola. You got the military base there, the big naval. You got the ship base there, the shipyard that builds. You got all the infrastructure there for a lot of the NASA and everything else that's taking stuff out in the Gulf. So yeah, that place is going to be that way. But now, if you come back up toward Niceville, which is between Fort Walton Beach and Pensacola, prices drop. If you cross over in Alabama and Foley area, prices a lot cheaper. You know, further north you come, prices drop. You go straight north, y'all, into Covington County, Escambia County, and all like that, and the prices are dirt cheap because they don't have any big city. There's no big infrastructure there. So yeah, you can get a house cheap, but you're going to have to drive. You know, so if you want to work in a major city, you got a 2 hour commute because it's 2 hours to a big city. On the other hand, if you're wanting to work from home with your own computer and everything else, like what I'm doing, you can do that fairly well. You know, just once a month, take a trip to the big city, buy groceries, buy whatever you get. UPS knows where you're at. They'll deliver whatever you need. So being out in the back ain't necessarily a bad thing anymore in many ways with modern society where you've got eBay, you got Amazon, you got, everybody, and they'll ship it to your door. And so you don't have to always go and physically do it. The stuff that don't matter that much, you know, I need a new coffee pot. I can pick one online for that. Things I want to physically hold and look at, you know, I can go in and get. But it's not a bad place, you know, be a little further out. Terry LaRue, all right. Have a good one. Don Duvall, hello. Well, that's one of the things. You're seeing a lot of infrastructure about to move back to America. They have been more industrial. That's building a factory type deal. More industrial build permits have been issued since January 2023 than in all of World War II. And that's where stuff that had been overseas for the last 25, 30 years, the price of labor is too high over now, and it's cheaper to bring it back. You know, it is. I saw a documentary the other day, and it was showing that it was cheaper for them to build a factory in Alabama and pay our labor than it was to build it overseas and ship it. So that's the reason Alabama's got all these. We got tons of car factories that are built up. Remington's moved to Alabama. I mean, we've got gun manufacturers, timber, and everything else. We've got all these industries coming to Alabama because we're cheap labor, but we're educated labor. We can be taught, you know, complex things. And so we are much more interesting. And so price of stuff's going to go up because they know that you're going to be coming here to live. And I think it'll level out after a while. They were showing the place down in Florida that in 2020 there was 80 houses available in that city, and in March of 2024 there were 800 houses available. And so they got these huge price tags on it. Nobody's buying them because there's 800 houses available at $500,000 each. They don't want to buy. You know, I think it's that pendulum's got to swing a little. Prices go way up because of demand, and it's going to swing the other way. You got to cut that price down, or I ain't buying it. So we shall see. Battle rattle, I hear you. Yeah, Christopher Evans. It's one of the things. If you work from home, come to the deep south. You can get a bigger hunk of land, cheaper. Prices are much cheaper to live down here, and just a lot easier. It really is. And don't go into Florida, because Florida has been for 50 plus years set up to fleece money out of retirees. And so they moved to Florida, and then you got the housing group and they just nickel and dime you to death. That doesn't happen in Alabama. We don't have the hurricane insurance like they do down there, because by the time the hurricane gets this far up, it's already lost a lot of its stuff. So you can get hurricane insurance. It's a lot cheaper in Alabama than it is down there. And so, it's one of them things. Moving to Alabama, if anybody's looking to get land and start over somewhere, take a look at Alabama, especially rural Alabama. And if you're willing to do a little bit of work, you'd be amazed what you can get for your money down here. Yeah, exactly. A lot of buildings available cheap, older farmhouses that you can upgrade. They're on the way to Grouch's land. There was this old 1920s house that was in a cow pasture. And this guy wanted to do a hunting club. He's got money from up north. And so he bought the house and he bought the land. And rather than building something new, he just came in and they gutted it, put all modern amenities into it, put a big central heat and air unit into it, insulated the stew out of it, put a big metal roof on the thing. His total investment was $100,000, and he's got like 41 acres right there to hunt, And then he started a little hunting club where you had to pay $1,000 to be part of the hunting club, and paid for the house and paid for the land in the first 2 years. And then after he had done that, 3 years in, he stopped running the hunting club and it became his. So he got all these people to pay money to come in to hunt these big deer, pay for his house and pay for his land. I know another guy that did that for quail. He took over a bunch of farmland over near Andalusia, Alabama, almost 400 acres there. And he'd gone fallow, and there was a lot of quail in there. Well, quail is a big premium for hunting. And he knew how to hunt quail. He had quail dogs and etc. So he really fostered that to grow. And once he got a big enough thing, he invited people that were writers and stuff to come in, and they came in, they hunted. And once the name got out there, he was charging right at $2,000 for a 2-day hunt for quail. And he booked up the entire season, After just a couple of years of that, he had paid for the land, paid for everything. And then he quit running the hunt. So there's ways out there if you really think about it. Yeah. Yeah, you just got to decide what you want. Plus, okay, now here's another thing. Every county at their county seat has your records where you're paying the taxes on land. And it is a common thing for somebody to pass away and the family doesn't pay the taxes. And so in the state of Alabama, if you pay the taxes on land for 7 years, you own the land, no matter what the cost of the land is. And so there's a lot of sharks looking for this too. I'm not going to kid you. But I know for a fact of somebody I know that he's acquired hundreds of acres of land that way, where he comes in and says, "Who hasn't paid taxes this year?" And he'll look at the land and he'll say, "Okay, I'll pay that $200 tax right there," and he'll keep going. Now the thing is, if whoever officially owns it comes up and says, "Wait a minute," you say, "Fine, just pay me back my money," and I'll relinquish. And so, but if I let somebody pay the taxes on my land for 7 years and I don't stop them, they own the land. That's law in Alabama. And so you got a lot of guys that have found really choice where it was some big company that went out of business, some railroad that went out of business, and that strip all where the railroad track was, that land, that 1 acre on either side, it's a strip 2 miles long, you know, that's up because that company went bankrupt and nobody's paying the taxes. And so there's a lot of stuff you start digging into the weeds you can find if you look. Again, like I said last time, there's a book by J. Wayne Fears called Your Dream Cabin. Get that because it tells you things you'd never have thought about on getting land, of stuff that's totally free to find out. Like every county has a weather plot map to show, flood plot map to show, etc. And those things are free for the asking. And it helps you see where the land is, the advantages, and there's ways to find out where there's land that you can just do like I just said, pay taxes and eventually own it. So there's ways if you just dig into it. Yeah. Uh, Battle rattle. One thing that's hurting the houses market is areas older, more established folks buying up the houses and renting them out to my generation. Exactly. Yeah. Blackie, how much would you charge for a 2 day possum and armadillo hunt? My area is overrun with them. Oh boy. You know, armadillos make good chili. I haven't eaten it, but a good friend of mine, he was live catching armadillos, and there were some Mexicans that lived down the road from him. They were paying him $5 a piece because they make chili out of them. I think they're out of Honduras, so it's a marketable resource. Oh, Eric, glad you like that new hat. And my niece said they were some. My niece is in Panama City right now. They're on vacation, and the plan is this Saturday, me and the wife are going to drive down and have supper with them. So I'll get some pictures of me and my niece. But yeah, she's doing the hats right now, and she'd got some in. And last week told me, all right, I got some in. You can tell them on the live. So she'll let me know, and I'll keep y'all appraised when we got them. Carlos, hello. Panther County survival. Blackie, Dave here in Arkansas. Hello. My grandpa used to make armadillo chili. Cool. And like I said, I've heard of it, and I just haven't ever eaten it. But why not? You know, armadillos are amazing at how high they can jump and take off. They can launch 6 feet straight up like a rocket. So don't lean over one and goose it with a stick or something, or it'll slap you in the face. No fireworks in Alabama? Oh yeah, we got fireworks in Alabama. I'm listening to boom, boom, boom up on the housing project up the road right now. talking about gators and possum stuff like that. There was somebody talking, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago now. And one of the things they were saying was that all the anacondas and pythons now down in the Everglades. And what are we going to do to help control it? I said, simple, start posting recipes. That's 400 pounds of chicken, because all reptiles taste like chicken. And so I've eaten python, I've eaten anaconda, I've eaten lizard, I've eaten gator, I've eaten, all the above. And if you know how to cook it, it does. So you just start posting recipes to rednecks, that 12-foot long, 150-pound anaconda, that's 150 pounds of chicken meat. Cut it up into hunks, put it in the freezer. You start doing that, it'll be amazing how fast that problem will go away. Yeah, Brian Bell, we get big iguanas down there, and they pay for them. Oh, yeah, they cook them. It's just another form of food. Oh, yeah, gray wolf. He dove. Oh, yeah, them claws. An armadillo is high speed clawing. And if you ever pin one up against you, he's going to rip you up. Well, David Farmer, welcome to the chat. Panther County, you're correct. Gator cooked right is really good. Um, it's just how it's cooked. You need to cook it slow and keep it real moist. And I had a good friend of mine. He was from Louisiana, and every year he'd get gator tail, because someplace in Mississippi or whatever, there was a place that raised alligators for sale, where they were raising them for the alligator hide and for meat. And so he'd leave here and he'd go to Louisiana, and he'd come back with a nice chest with 4 or 5 big gator tails in it. And he'd cook them. We'd have a Saturday night get together and he'd cook them. Will Rowell, do you like the Ruger Wrangler or Super Wrangler? I had a Wrangler for a while, and I did like it. Mine was one of the early ones. The only problem I had with it was on the end of the base pin, there's a little bitty plunger spring. Okay. If your base pin isn't fully seated in place, that spring is supposed to push the hammer for the transfer bar to go up. And if that spring doesn't push it, the transfer bar hits the firing pin rather than sliding up beside it. And it jammed the gun up. And I finally figured out that's what it was. That spring wasn't strong enough. And I've heard they've corrected that. Now, I've not had a Super Wrangler, but I had a single six for 30 years and loved it. And great companion for a sidearm to take to the woods. Plenty of firepower for what you need, compact, very accurate. And the Super Wrangler really fits that role. So, which I like that. And I also like the Heritage. I have a Heritage right now in dual cylinder. But I would be willing to try a Super Wrangler and try it out. Ken Albers, do armadillos really carry leprosy? Yes, that's how they keep their plates flexible. But it was because of armadillos when we finally figured out that 98% of the world's population is automatically immune to leprosy. One of the reasons it was such a big thing in Europe was interbreeding, especially in the royal families and down. And they didn't have it, but they hunted for years and years and years to try to find some animal they could use for laboratory tests for leprosy. And it wouldn't live in nothing, other than us. And what they finally found was an armadillo. And he was eat up with leprosy. And then they figured out they naturally carry it. And so it's how they keep their plates flexible. But again, from what I've heard from research and stuff like that, 98% of the world's population is automatically immune to leprosy. That's the reason in the past they talked about wet and dry leprosy, and that some people would have it and you could just touch them and you'd get sick, of course, interbreeding. On the other hand, other people would not get sick no matter what because they were immune to it. So that's what I know of it thus far. But I'm sure cooking would kill it. Oh, yeah, the Ruger Mark IV lights, yes. Ruger Mark IV was the semi-automatic 22 to have when I was young, and several of my friends bought one back then, and here 40 years later, they're still using it. I've had a bunch of them. I've had the small Ruger Mark 1, Mark 2, and Mark 3. I've had the Bull Barrel Mark 2s, super accurate, heavy, but super accurate guns. My favorite automatic I've ever had, and I only had it for a couple of years, and that was a Colt Woodsman heavy barrel target model. I got that when I was 13. I worked for a horse ranch down here in North Florida for a summer, playing basically cowboy. You know, you got up, got on a horse in the morning, and my job was to ride fence, mend fences, help move cattle and horses from one big pasture to another, stuff like that. We broke a couple of horses. I was just a little bit of skinny youngin', but I could wrap around on a saddle where it was hard for them to throw me off. And at the end of that summer, when I got to be paid my wages for the summer, he offered me that gun and money instead of just all money if I wanted it. And I said yes. And so I had that gun for a couple of years. Wish I had it now. Those are ridiculously expensive collector's items today. Battle rattle. My great grandparents grew up during the Great Depression. You better have asked what it was you were eating before you stuck it in your mouth. Anybody else have coyote jerky? You did not ask when I was coming up. That was an insult, even to suggest. Uh, and I have told the recipe before. Here is the recipe. You take the meat and you cube it up into about 1 inch pieces and put it into a big Dutch oven. And then you take, well, excuse me, back up. You take a big yellow onion and you cut it where it's just big rings and you put it in the bottom of the pan and you put it in there and you burn that onion. I mean, burn it black. Okay. And you take and scrape out, leaving a lot of that fond in the bottom. You're hearing fireworks. You're probably hearing AK-47 crackle off here in a little bit, and an AR fully automatic back that way. You know, they like to party that way. And then after you've got that onion, you've burned it at the bottom, then you take and put a bed of fresh cut onions across the top. You take the cubed up meat and put over the top. 1 stick of butter cut up, dropped all the way around. Then you dump an entire bottle of red wine on top of it, seal it up with aluminum foil, and bake it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes to an hour. Okay. Notice I didn't say what kind of meat. It don't matter, because all you're going to taste is red wine and onions. It's going to taste really, really good, but that's all you're going to taste. So if it's possum, it's alligator, it's roadkill deer, it's something that's got freezer burnt, that's the recipe. That's what you cooked. And so when you smell red wine and onions, don't ask, just start chewing. Cow Tipper, welcome to the party. Eric Vedder, glad to do it. Thank you very much for being supportive. John Moore, hello. Yeah, Jeff, ramen noodles in college. We were not ramen noodles. Ramen noodles didn't, I never saw them until the 1980s. We had macaroni and cheese was the cheap meal. It was 20 cents to 25 cents a box for Kraft macaroni and cheese. That was your poor meal, was you eating macaroni and cheese. Then ramen showed up and that kind of pushed macaroni and cheese out of the way. But I never saw ramen noodles until I was really in junior high. Late 70s, maybe. Definitely not before 77. I just never saw in my neck of the woods. Oh yeah, gray wolf. My grandfather's favorite breakfast was scrambled brains and eggs, which is either cow or hog brains, but brains and eggs, and that was his favorite breakfast. Hey, Pink. Good evening, brother. Glad you got in. Yep, briar smoke. Cheap meal was fried bologna on Wonder Bread, chased down with cheap coffee. We'd get those blocks of government cheese, and we'd cut them in like a half-inch thick slab, and then that would be thrown into a skillet with a little salt and pepper on top, just to kind of make it melt a little on the top and the bottom, and that would be thrown between two pieces of bread. If you were lucky, you got like a scrambled egg and or spam. Hoorah! Fried spam with a lot of pepper and stuff on it. There was all kinds of stuff like we ate in those days. No, what you're hearing in the background is fireworks going off up the hill. Jeff Conley, in the early 80s, we got ramen noodles for 10 cents. That was it. It came in cheaper than the box because a box of Kraft mac and cheese was 25 cents. And so the first ramens I ever seen were 15 cents, and like, what do you do with these? Oh, you just pour boiling water into it and stir it up like you do the macaroni and cheese. God, how many times I ate macaroni and cheese out of a canteen cup in the middle of the woods somewhere. You learn to spice it up. You take Vienna sausage, the hot ones, and cube that up right quick and throw it in the bottom of a canteen cup. And then you'd mix in the macaroni noodles and everything and boil all of it and make, kind of like a chili mac deal. I mean, we did all kinds of stuff with that. Ken Albridge, Black Cow was told the reason behind sauces and gravy in general covers up the beginning of the spoiling. Yes, things started to get a little bit of taste. You start adding something to counteract the taste. It's not bad. It's just got a little bit of a wang to it. So like I was saying, the milk's starting to go bad. Uh-oh. Well, that went onto the stove right then. You turned the thing up, you put the candy thermometer into it, and just as soon as it hit right at 200 degrees, you pulled it off the heat and gave it that big dash of vinegar and went to stirring and turned it into cheese, And I remember my sister doing that when I was a kid. I liked it, Let it squeeze it between the cheesecloth, get the extra stuff out of it, then put it in the fridge, and it'll last another couple of weeks because we're gonna eat it before that, But then you'd suddenly have a hunk of cheese and something to drink, Don't get rid of it. Just find a way to cover it up. Oh yeah, SOS. Oh yeah, fried bologna, pork and beans, soft fried taters. Yeah. Gray Wolf, you're struggling when your mac and cheese don't have butter and milk. Never had butter and milk. It was always water. I Honest to God, my first girlfriend was the first time I ever had hot chocolate with milk. You always just made cocoa with water, you know. And here she was, she heated up milk to make hot chocolate. What are you doing? You know, I thought we were making what, cheese or something? No, add cocoa to it, make hot cocoa. I had never had it with milk. It was poor. I mean, come on. Reinhardt, enjoying this conversation while barbecuing. Cool. Honda 305 Hawk. I think I do. The best bike ever made was the Honda 50. You could pick it up. And for us poor kids, you could strap buckets on that thing, go fishing. You could get into you could go places down Goat Pass on that little bitty thing. Be able to pick it up and go over a down log or whatever. The old Honda 50. I had one, and it was the best bike I ever had. Wish I had another one. Elvin, yeah, you hunting iguanas down there in Puerto Rico. Yeah. Common Sense Karen, good evening. Navy beans and cornbread. Yep. Oh, sweetened condensed milk. Man, that bread pudding, uh, rice pudding. There was so many dessert type stuffs that would pop out of condensed milk. Oh yeah, and cornbread. That was a staple, dude. You know, fried cornbread. You made a batter like pancake, poured it about that big around, hard fried cornbread. That's what my daddy loved, and that's what I came up on. Charlie, can you suggest a source for a load data for a single ball for 38 special? Uh Look in the loading book for a 158 grain wide cutter. What it says for that, that do it for the round ball. And you know, Lee sells sizing dies. So you can take a 375 round ball and press it through, and what comes out is a 38 slug. You know, that's something you might want to look at. You can get them where they're a hand hammer, knock them through. You ain't got to put them on a press. But if you look at leeprecision.com, they have a 357 sizing die that you can take round ball and push through and make something go into a 38 special case pretty easy. Oh yeah, Jeff Conley. Guy was right, 6'7", riding a Honda Trail 50. Yeah, he's all over it. Man, that was, I'm serious. That was the bike. You know, all of us young guys wanted one of them Honda 50s. And there was a individual that was off Fort Rooker, and he had a Honda 50 on the back of a Jeep, had a rig for it. And he really, really wanted a piece of equipment that I had. And I was really wanting that bike, and he didn't want to let that bike go, but he really wanted this piece of equipment. And to make a long story short, we decided to play cards, you know, and we played poker. And about 2 hours into that, I won that bike. And that's where I got my first Honda 50. I had two when I was young. That one I'm talking about, had it, loved it, drove it forever. It finally got stolen, and which I wonder if that guy came back and got it, you know. But I never saw him again. And probably about the time his orders got cut for him to go somewhere else, he knew where I lived, and that bike disappeared. And then I ended up buying me a second one off of somebody used. And then I thought I outgrew it, and I wanted that Yamaha 125 dirt bike. And I should have stuck with that 50. It was a lot more useful. Ken Albridge, Blackie, what were corn dodgers and John Wayne? Corn dodgers are made in boiling water, and it's sort of a thick dough of cornmeal put into boiling water and cooked, kind of like a dumpling cooked, and then they dry. And that's what they mean by corn dodger. If you look online, you'll find a corn dodger. I think it really meant to say corn dumpling, but I understand it's made in boiling water. Andy Knight, good evening. Charlie, good evening. Battle rattle, I hear you. Hey, I can remember when I was 9 and I got my first bicycle, and I rode 15 miles on that bicycle to go fishing. 7 miles there and 7 miles back. With 5-gallon bucket or whatever rigged on it and fishing poles going fishing. So when I rolled over and got that dirt bike, and I was too young to have a driver's license, didn't matter. I just run along the side of the road, stayed off the road. The only time I hopped up on the road was going across a bridge, hop back on. Yeah, Himalayan bikes. Hush puppy, kind of, yeah. Reinhardt. Hey, my granddaddy was pretty good at it. And so I learned checkers, chess, poker, 5-card stud, 21, blackjack, Mexican sweat. I had they told us in school we weren't allowed to have cards in kindergarten on up, which I never went to kindergarten, but first grade on, you couldn't have cards because we already knew how to, you're going to play for lunch money. They were just another way to providing for the family. You're good at it. You're good at it. Don't cheat. Be good at it. I haven't played poker in 30 years. I really, really haven't. That was when me and my wife got together 34 years ago. Right there when we first got together, friends come over, we'd play cards a little bit. And I have not played any of those games. Just sitting here thinking about it. I haven't played. Don't even remember what the dang rules are anymore, to be honest. I have to look it up. That is not something I'm trying to get sucker somebody into playing. I'm not doing that. But literally, don't anybody challenge me to play because I haven't played in so long. I'll have to look up the rules again because all of them kind of blur in together, like Mexican sweat and 5-card stud and poker. Little Annie. Little Annie was you would deal out 3 cards, and then you had a poker chip, and you face down. You don't see him. The other guy does the same thing. You pick 1 of 3, and you put the poker chip on it. That's the bet, and then you flip the other 2. And who the other people around, if your 2 cards beat, whoever's the best of the 2 cards gets all that pot. Okay. And it goes back on that first card. And then you're going to deal again. This time you're going to put 2 more cards and you got your stack of chips on it. See? And you went to you lost. And so the next person, so you're building a pot. It's what you're doing. It's bouncing from place to place, building a pot to the last hand. There's 20 hands in it. And so you'd have a stack of chips on 1 card, and it might flip to somebody else. So that's one of them that throw beer cans at you and stuff. Yeah, little Annie. Yep. Oh yeah. Oh, we played. God, progressive rummy. Uh, hearts, diamonds, progressive rummy. There were all kinds of games. God, been so many years. I mean, really. That was a way to. We didn't have internet, especially when you were doing things you had to waste time, like your cannon, you know. And so you got 5 or 6 cannons going on right now in the kitchen, and everything's prepped. Now we're just doing the jars to do it. So you got an hour between here to here, you know. And so everybody be playing cards. Okay, it's time, and everybody do whatever it was, you know, processing whatever. That was a common way. Now everybody's on their phone, you know. But back in the day, we carried cards for that type of stuff. When I went to driving an 18-wheeler and was working for Enterprise Electronics delivering multi-million-dollar radars, I carried cards with me. And truck drivers, all of us, you know, you stuck here, you get, you know, got in 11 o'clock at night, it'll be 8 tomorrow morning before you can ever deliver or whatever, and sitting in a truck stop and sit down at a table and start playing cards. Somebody will sit down with you and want to play, you know, way to pass time. All that's gone today. It's all about that phone. 3-deck canasta. Oh, yeah. PB&J omelets. That's a challenge. Okay. Yeah, spades. I remember that. Uno. Uno is a great drinking game because you could be half snockered and still see them numbers. And boy, it could flip, you know, like, oh no, you draw 4. Yeah, those were good days. Chuck Miller, hello. Have I ever used a 25-35 rifle? I have shot one, but I haven't used it for hunting. But it was a good small game gun, popular for things like varminting and woodchuck, uh, pronghorn. Probably would work fairly well on whitetail, something like that. You know, medium and down game. Uh, the 243 when it came out was to be the gun that's the transition, because the small calibers like the 22, 220, and all of those for varmint guns, and then you had the 30-06 and all them others for big deer guns. It was the transition, and stuff like the 25-35, the 25-20, the 20. I want to say it was the 25. Oh God, 25-55. I think there were a lot of those in between calibers in those days. But the 25-35 was that type of, you know, what today we'd do with a 243, or a 223, something like that. So I've shot one. A friend of mine had a Remington rolling block, and a lot of I had 32-20s and 25-35. God, there was some real odd one. 218B, you know, he collected Remingtons and stuff. And that was one of the favorites of the wildcatters back in the day, because you could just make a barrel. And so they would take a barrel blank, chambered in whatever. You could go and buy 25 caliber, you know, and just chambered in whatever and screw it into the Remington and have a functional gun. So a lot of the wildcatters in the early part of the 1900s, Remingtons were the wildcatter gun if you were trying out something new. I've had them I fired them in 357 maximum, and etc. So there's all kinds of guns. But I'm trying to remember, didn't Savage make a 20? Was it Savage or Marlin that had a lever action, something like a 25-35? I'm probably confusing it with something else. Guys, WD-40 a good or bad lube for a pocket knife? WD-40 is officially, when you read the label, is a moisture displacer in English. It means it evaporates and then it leaves a coating. It is not that great a lube for a pocket knife because it will evaporate and dry out. I like 3-in-1 machine oil for that. Something's going to be carrying on you all the time because that's a humid environment. WD-40 is great for something you're using a lot, and so you're going to be relubing it a couple of times a week because you're using it and having to clean it. Yeah, that's fine. But if it's a lube it done and I ain't going to worry about this for 3 or 4 months, use 3-in-1 machine oil. It'll be a lot better on it. Yeah, 22 Hornet, very good for shooting flat. And I've known family members that took deer with 22 Hornet too. So battle rattle. Oh, no. One of the first times I got to Chicago, there was an individual sitting there rattling dice. And one of that, no. Why not? Because I was born at night, but not last night. And if you sitting here looking to talk to truck drivers about throwing dice, you here to fleece them suckers, and I ain't got that kind of money to waste. So thank you very much. Yeah, 38-40 pump. Probably the rifling was gone in it. But if you still had it, it could be fleshed out to 44-40, and it would probably then. Just had to recut rifling. Correct, Bill Van. That's right. WD-40 is for drying out water, not for it evaporates. It does leave a coating, but it's not a good gun or knife lube. 250 Savage, yes, good caliber. Savages, man, it's underrated. It really is. That 99 was a very well thought out gun, especially for you guys up in snow country. The way it was made, it worked perfect up there in them cold countries. And their cartridges were really well made, performed very well for the day. Gray Wolf, yeah, model 92 and 2520. Yeah. Again, that was the 2520, the 22 Magnum and the 2520 are kind of parallel with each other. 2520's got a little more horsepower, a little more hit, but the job that it was doing when they were making it, we would today think of a 22 Magnum, you know. Oh boy, I bet that brass is fun to reload. Which I reloaded 25 ACP for somebody one time. And I'm here to tell you that is taking tweezers to hold a bullet in place to get it started. Yeah, that was not a caliber. I never liked the real small, tight calibers because that small little neck, unless you had tapered bullets to go in, it was always a pain to get them started straight. Well, there went the AK-47. Oh yeah, underscore. Mark A and Mark B rations. Yeah. Don't question what's in it, just eat. Except ham and eggs chopped in C rations, the Vietnam era. Ugh. Oh, those were horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah, Christopher Evans. I had good luck with your Stevens by Savage 12 gauge pump. I had a Stevens Model 67 for a lot of years, and it served me really well as a swamp woods gun. The barrel was a little shorter to make it real handy when you're in a boat doing trot lines and swamps and stuff, and you're going to have snakes in trees and stuff like that. So it was kind of cut a little short. And, but even then, I carried that thing for years and years. And it was one of my all time favorite pump shotguns. And from nostalgia, I'd love to find another Stevens Model 67 pump 12 and make it legal length um, to have just for nostalgia because I carried one for so many years. Briar Smoke. Oh, they've already got the cannons out now. They've been booming, and it'll get worse between now and midnight. Back that way, up over the hill, is a housing area now. Back that way, back over, oh, quarter mile, you've got a large contingent of people from south of the border. And they don't really kick off their celebration till about 11 o'clock tonight. And then they'll party till about 1. And that's when you're going to hear the AK and the AR and other things going off, 12 gauges and stuff. They like to shoot up in the air, you know, yell things in Spanish and stuff like that. They're a lot of fun. They're cool people. Eric Vader, Blackie, your thoughts on the 1022 Takedown Ruger? Very nice gun. The Ruger 1022 is a rock solid platform, overbuilt. Um, get good mags, and usually, anytime you got a problem, it's the mag. The takedown where I can take the barrel off and put it back. I've had one in the past. It was a big thumb wheel, so it could be broken down into a small set for carrying behind the seat of a truck or in a boat. And then I've had one that you flipped a lever and the barrel came off back many, many, many years ago. That was a custom type thing we'd come up with. But Ruger really does make a really good 22. And with a takedown, you can put it in a small package. Should be great. That makes it even easier to clean it. Pull the barrel out and you can do it from the breech real easy. Oh, Gray Wolf. Dude, I remember when me and friends of mine out of sheer boredom would lay on our back underneath a great big old huge pine tree full of pine cones and shoot pine cones to make them drop onto your buddy over there. Try to bomb your buddy and hit him. You know, God knows where them bullets went. But we were like 10 years old. Um, I can I clearly remember one weekend at a family thing where me and a cousin shot 200 times because we had 4 boxes each, which was 50 rounds. And so we shot 200 times each that day, and we denuded that pine tree of limbs and pine cones, lobbing shells, which we were in the middle of nowhere, North Florida, where there wasn't another house for 5 miles. So, you know, nobody cared back in them days. Texas Sheepdog, good evening. Wow, we've been going for an hour and 35 minutes now. Arabian salt potash. Interesting. Oh, yeah. Bill Van, they're going to think somebody's scoring. They're trained to them. Oh, Briar Smoke. Yeah. I've been peppered. Um, I've been shot 4 times with a shotgun. Always it wasn't lethal. I just got peppered. But you know, once was rock salt, guilty. The other 2 times where it was some sort of hunting or whatever, where I got peppered and had to dig a couple pellets out of my right calf. I had a couple on my shoulder, one in this forearm. I remember that with a pair of tweezers. Uh, Aunt of mine sticking the tweezers in the hole until she felt the metal and then pulling it back out. You know, so. And then you're real mad at your cousin for peppering you. So. Yes, 410 shells are hard to come by. Robbie, good evening. Oh boy, Gray Wolf. Yeah, there's fun. We took I think it was a 4-inch diameter, um, like a flagpole pipe, which I think it was actually part of some sort of irrigation system. And we stuck it into a bank of dirt at a steep angle like that. And we drilled a hole back there at the back end and put a firecracker fuse in the hole. And then we would take a can of Aquanet hairspray, put it so that the spray thing is downhill, slide it down the pipe, put a couple pieces of cardboard on it, and take a ramrod and push it down there. So it pressed it, and it would spray out that air spray into that last 8 inches of pipe down there. And then we'd light that fuse, and it'd boom, it'd launch it way over yonder. You know. We only got to do that a couple times before adults showed up. Wanted to know why the Battle of Gettysburg is going on down here. Oh, yeah. Have you had a chance to play more with the Glock field knife? Did a video about any further thoughts on it? I had played with it a little bit just around the house doing stuff, quick cutting and stuff like that. And I can see where they would be interested in it as a field knife. It's not a bushcraft knife, but as a general purpose knife, yeah, I can see where they were going with it. I've still got it. It's up here in my collection right now, and I haven't devoted a lot of time to it. I need to. I need to try it out a little more in depth. But I have played with it some. Yeah, Gary, shooting animals in the air. We had a guy that used to come out to Fort Toulouse at Montgomery every year on 4th of July, and he'd shoot an anvil. He'd put 2 anvils together with black powder and blow an anvil 100 feet in the air. You know. Yeah, Gray Wolf. Launching an anvil is a thing. You know how much them dang anvils cost? It's like, ew, you know. I have friends that are blacksmiths. They just cringe at even the mention of that. They go, please, dear God, tell me it was a Chinese anvil. Don't be firing a fine German anvil in the air. Don't even do it. It's soft ground. I don't care. Yeah, Aquanet for the tater gun. Well, I mentioned this in video, I don't know, a couple of years ago, that you make up your tinder. You in the fall, you go around, you gather up all your dry tinder, all your dried flower tops, and etc., and you make up bags of it. And then a great thing to do is put it in the sun or something, in the house or whatever, and make sure it is dry. And then spread it out and spray it down with hairspray. Let that dry for a couple hours and then gather it up and put it in a bag. That's the best tinder you ever had, because you get a spark in the same zip code, it's going to ignite. And we were doing rendezvous years ago, and we're going to be doing a demonstration for the public or for kids or something like that. I learned that from Grouch. We had spread out and spray down the night before, spray down our bird nest with Aquanet hairspray and let it dry. And you go, whoo, you know, you'd have flames like that. You look good. And you're trying to demonstrate for the public. You know, it's not a time to go and tick, 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 tick. You need one hit, spark, and anything in that zip code in your ignition time. But that's a Aquanet hairspray. Great stuff to get you going. Yeah, Battle Rattle. Yeah, they're getting good knives. To be honest, I never paid much attention to them. You know, I came up with K-bars. You know, was a military knife, and I tell you something I just recently found out that kind of shocked me. Because in the 80s and all, it was a Gerber Mark II, you know, knife that had that offset blade and everything, so you could stick it in the boot and the handle would be at the right angle. All us guys got one of them Gerber Mark II double-sided daggers with that straight. I liked it without the serrations. And it was a fighting knife. It was a lousy field knife, but it was a fighting knife. Well, somebody pointed out about they don't make them anymore. And I went and looked online, and those things are $700 collector knives now. Did you know that? Like, wow. I may have hung on to some of them. They're caches here or there of gear from years gone by. And back about 4 years ago, I decided to open up a cache that I had put down in 1985. And I had a cold steel SRK out of that top end voodoo steel. They had V steel, brand new, had never been out of the wrapper as part of that set that I had put down. And I pulled it out because there was ammo and stuff. I knew it was time to pull it out and replace and go back. A friend of mine wanted that SRK and said, "Oh, sure, here, you can have the SRK." I didn't know what them suckers were going for now. Wow. So, Chris Evans, Blackie, have you ever used quartz for fire starting? Yes, it makes a very weak spark. So you need very good, very dry tinder or char cloth. You're probably going to have to use char cloth to catch that, because the spark is not that hot. And so it mostly in winter down here, because my humidity is so high, sometimes you make a spark and it just goes out like that because the humidity is so much. So I have used chert and quartz. We used to have chert and quartz flints for our flintlocks. These are big trade guns. That thing's like a half-inch wide and, you know, that big to make sparks. And we'd use the pan and flintlocks. And we also had fairly larger pieces we'd rip up and hit on a fire steel to do it. And it works, but it's a weaker spark. And so you just got to have a really good tinder to catch it. Good night, Kent. Safe driving, brother. Tim Pierce, thank you very much. Yes, Brett, trying to make that. There's the AK popping off. To make that loop for the toggle using the plastic coat hanger, about 8 inches, 8 or 9 inches. And what I typically do is make it, put it on. If it makes too long and loose, then just take the knot and pull the knot part further up and tie, go around and tie another knot until you shorten it down to the length you want, and then cut off the excess and just burn the knot. And that'll work really well. Oh, the British military field knife, the Golok, something like that. I think it's the name of that. Or that one that's really thick, wood handle comes out. Yeah, I had one of those back in the 80s and 90s. It's a great pro, but was a lousy field knife. It's too thick. In fact, I got it off a friend of mine who had spent time working with Royal Marines and brought one of them knives back. Great for prying pallets apart, but wasn't worth the flip of the field knife for me, But I did use it like a fro for batoning wood for quite a while, because it would split wood pretty well for kindling. But the British has had several knives. The one I'm thinking of, I want to say it was like square bolts in the handle or something like that. I can see metal, wood handle, and then it looks like 3 big bolts holding the handle together. But that one was way too thick to use. Well, guys, that's 1 hour and 47 minutes. We're coming up on 2 hours. And I can hear my neighbors are cutting loose with the AKs now. So I think we'll call it quits for the night. But oh, Tim Pierce, glad you like it. Being able to, that screen house, go around that tarp and make yourself a nice big area in there in the heat, I think it's well worth it. I'm going to be camping out here soon, and I plan on putting that one around mine for that very reason. So, but guys, anyway, we'll call it quits. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in on 4th of July. And y'all have a great night. Thank you so much. Be safe. God bless. And I'll be back on next Thursday night. And till then, safe journeys, guys.